Welcome everyone to game number 3 between Vidit Gujrathi and Peter Svidler. The match is tied at 3-3 and we are in the third classical game. Vidit as usual with his customary moment of silence before the game, and off we go. Knight comes out to f3. In game number 1, Vidit had played his pawn up to c4, but today he opens with knight f3. Peter takes his time and brings out his knight as well to f6. It's a flexible opening. You can go into d4 territory. You can also go into the English territory with c4, and Vidit has done it. He's pushed his pawn to c4 and Peter has responded back with the symmetrical English with c5. Now, Vidit can directly go d4, but he first puts his knight out on c3. And if Svidler also puts his knight on c6, we'll have the 4 knights symmetrical, and he does it. Knight to c6. White now has many ideas. Can go g3, e3 followed by d4, but Vidit goes directly d4 and Peter takes it. C takes d4 and we have knight takes d4. This is a little like the Sicilian, but instead of pawn being on e4 and this pawn being on c2, we have pawn on c4. So a well-known line in the symmetrical English, the main line goes with e6, g3, queen b6, but it has lot of theory, and so Peter Svidler goes queen b6 directly. Now, Vidit was faced with this move before by Parham Maksudlu, and in that game he had gone e3, but he had studied it and plays knight b3. This is the importance of game analysis. e6, and Vidit already knows that a3 is a good move here and he plays it. He pushes his pawn to a3, stopping any plans of bishop b4, and now he can actually fight in the center with moves like e4, bishop e3 and so on. So Svidler is now thinking a bit and he plays d5. Has he sacrificed a pawn here? Well, not really, because if you take the pawn, cd, ed, knight d5, that's a blunder, because after takes, bishop e6, the knight on b3 is hanging. So you can't take it, but after d5, Vidit now in deep thought. I believe he's already out of his preparation. He's thinking here what to do. He can take once on d5 and play like this, maybe put his bishop out on e3, but he actually goes directly bishop e3, attacking the queen, and now asking Svidler, where do you want to go with your queen? He goes back to d8, defending the d5 pawn. Okay, so what does now Vidit do? Because with the bishop on e3 he did gain a tempo. He first takes on d5, however his bishop on f1 has been blocked by the pawn on e2. Now Svidler takes with the knight first, Vidit takes back, and now you take back with the pawn or the queen. He takes with the pawn. In a way, this pawn has been firmly blockaded, and Vidit goes g3, a very nice move. His idea is to put the bishop on g2 and put pressure on the d5 pawn. So bishop e7 played by Svidler, and now bishop g2 played. So if Peter defends his d5 pawn with bishop e6, then Vidit can simply castle and plonk his knight here, and in such a position white is better because this isolated pawn is weak. You can put your rook here, queen d2, rook d1, very easy to play. So Peter Svidler knows, he understands, being an 8-time Russian champion, a World Cup winner, 3 times candidates player, he understands he shouldn't get passive, and so he goes bishop f6, and he tells Vidit, yes, you come and win this pawn, but I will take your pawn on b2. Now for Vidit, the best move here is to castle, allow black to take this pawn, then go rook a2, and when the bishop goes back to f6, then bring your rook to d2, and it's very powerful for white, because now next move I'm going to take rook d5. But what Vidit did not like here, as he said in the post-game conference, is that he didn't like d4 here for black, and true, after bd2 bishop c3 he was considering this and did not find anything clear. So that's the reason why here castle, although it's a very good move. Vidit is considering whether he should go for it. The other idea can be to play queen d2 and defend this pawn, but with queen d2 maybe you are risking somewhere allowing the move d4. So taking his time, but he takes the pawn directly. He takes the pawn with the queen, and now Svidler has a choice between taking directly on b2 or taking the queen, and then on b2 he goes directly bishop b2 and he's attacking the rook. And also now next move bishop c3 check is sort of unstoppable. Vidit goes rook to a2. He plays here. Maybe he could have also first taken here, knight takes, and then played rook a2, bishop here, and maybe knight d2. This is possible, but he goes rook a2 and Svidler gives a check. He gives a check to the king. You want to block it with your bishop. He plays bishop d2 now, and a very decent line is now take the queen and then take the bishop and then continue the game. It should be around equal, but Svidler goes bishop f6, and maybe does that give with it some chances? He takes on d8. Two options now. You want to take with either the bishop or the knight. He goes knight takes d8. So if black gets bishop e6, castles, this position is equal. But for the time being, Vidit goes knight c5, and he's like, sorry Peter, you can't develop your bishop just as yet because b7 is hanging. But Svidler is like, okay, I'm going knight e6. Do you want to trade the knights here? If you take it, black is out of the woods. It is equal. So Vidit now in deep thought. This is the moment where he has to figure out, and he comes up with a very nice move, knight a6. Let's take stock of this position. The knight on a6 stops the rook from going to b8. The bishop cannot develop because bishop takes b7 is hanging. So black's entire queen side is locked up. But Svidler castles, and he says that, okay, somehow I will figure a way to wriggle out of this mess. But Vidit now goes and attacks the rook on f8. Yes, you have to save the rook, so rook d8 makes complete sense now. Yes, he brings his rook here on d8. Now here knight d4 is a powerful move because you want to sort of coordinate yourself, and so after knight, Vidit should try and stop it. Some of the lines can be castles, knight d4, knight c7, rook b8, knight d5, bishop e6, and yes, here black is doing okay. So maybe not this. Then you try to think if you can stop here with e3, but then knight jumps to g5 and you go knight c7, bishop g4 threatening a mate on d1, f4, and then even rook d1 check here can get very dangerous. You know, king f2, knight h3 check, bishop takes, rook h1, bishop g4, rook h2, all this stuff, you know, it's very crazy, this entire line. So Vidit, after deep thought, actually instead of e3 goes rook d2, and this is a very smart move. Svidler should take, and after taking go knight d4, and I think slowly he will be able to wriggle out of the mess, because now next move he's planning to move his bishop, but he goes instead of taking directly knight d4, and this is a big mistake. This is an error because now Vidit can go knight c7, and he does it. The point is, first the rook is hanging, so you save the rook, which Svidler will do. So he goes rook b8, saves it, and now you can pull back the knight to d5 and attack the bishop on f6. Yes, he does it. Knight d5, and now your threats actually include knight f6, gf6, and pawn to e3. So the best move here is to play bishop e6, but even that does not help. In fact, Svidler goes bishop f5. Oof, that is a big error. This is a big mistake. Vidit now can actually take on d4, bishop takes d4, knight e7, and pick up this bishop. I think Vidit has seen it. You can look on his face. He's a bit confused. Why did Svidler go there? What is the point? And he takes it. Rook takes d4. Brilliant move. And now it's over. The game is over because after bishop takes d4, knight e7 check, king goes wherever, knight takes f5, and you have two pieces for a rook without any compensation. Okay, the game can be continued, but Vidit is clearly better. Bishop f5 turned into a big mistake. Bishop e6 was possible, but after knight f6, gf6, bishop e7, white is still very much better. So knight d4 was a big error, and now after rook d4, you can see Peter Svidler there looking at the board and shakes his head and offers his hand in resignation. With this, Vidit has struck again, wins the third game, and is now leading the match with a score of 6-3. A big victory for the Nashik lad, and Peter Svidler has to fight back again in the final classical game. There are 4 classical games, and then we'll have 4 rapids and 8 blitz games. But for now, it's Vidit who is in the lead with 6-3.